A little bit.
It all matters so much. What are you talking about?
It doesn't matter. Nothing matters. In a little bit, in a couple minutes, we won't even be matter. So,
Whoa.
All right.
That was deep.
You guys ready?
I am.
Yep.
Alrighty. All right. Welcome to the new episode of Pot of the Dead. I am your host, Nicholas, and with me is
Stephanie, the wife.
Tasha, the sister.
and I am your elitist scum, Nicholas, as previously stated. On today's episode, we will be discussing the 2007 horror anthology film Trick or Treat. This film has an interesting history and development on how it came out, what it was supposed to be, and these things, and how it ended up getting released direct to DVD after being shelved. And through that has developed quite the cult following. What are you two, what is your history with this film? Stephanie, why don't you go first?
So I got introduced into it from you, and is kind of like my seg into horror films after a long, I would say, break from them, because I'm not really a huge horror fan, which is coincidentally enough weird because I'm on a horror podcast. But and I started watching it, and I fell in love with the movie, and I thought it was really good. And I've watched it probably 4 or 5 times now, and I learn new things from it every single time I watch it. So it's definitely an Easter eggy film.
All right, Tasha.
This is my first time watching it. All that I knew about it was the cute little sock mask character.
Right on. Yeah, I saw this movie not too long after it came out on DVD years ago. Initially, when I watched it, I was kind of meh, because again, my nose is so far up in the air that I could drown in rain sometimes when it comes to horror. Like I said, it came out in 2007. So if it wasn't foreign or new French extreme art nouveau kind of stuff, I was just like, poppycock. It's got people from the X-Men in it, for shame. In my years as I've grown and matured and stuff, I still hold my elitist card for some things, but it definitely has grown on me more. Definitely more times I've watched it, I've liked it more and more, especially with it being something that early in Stephanie and I's relationship, I showed her and she gravitated towards it. So that made me like it even a little bit more, because it was something for her and I to connect and talk about and everything like that. So this film, like I said, is an American anthology horror comedy film written and directed by Micheal Dougherty and produced by Bryan Singer. Bryan Singer is the man that gave us the first few X-Men films. So there is a connection there with our casting and stuff. The film stars Dylan Baker, Rochelle Aites, Anna Paquin, aka Suki, and Brian Cox, who I've seen in multiple things. Most currently, he's in the television series Succession. It relates 4 Halloween horror stories with a common element in them. Sam, a trick-or-treating demon wearing orange footy pajamas with a burlap sack over his head. The character makes an appearance in each of the stories whenever one of the other characters breaks a Halloween tradition. 5 interwoven stories that occur on Halloween. An everyday high school principal has a secret life. A college virgin might have just met the guy for her. A group of teenagers pull a mean prank. And a woman who loathes the night has to contend with her holiday-obsessed husband. And not to forget, a mean old man meets his match with a demonic supernatural trick-or-treater. So the budget for this film was $12 million, which compared to last week's film was $5 million. That being said, for $5 million, Oculus came out into theaters. This film did not. This film went direct to video after being shelved for multiple years because the production company, the higher ups, the men in charge of the money and stuff, just didn't see it being as a good return on investment and stuff, considering the market at the time. At one time, it was going to come out, and they're like, I don't know about the market. Then they're like, we'll put it out next year. And then like Saw 4 comes out. They're like, nope, we're just not going to do it this year. We're going to maybe next year. And then they were just like, fuck it. Just put it out on DVD. We'll see what fucking happens. We'll never speak of this again. And slowly through word of mouth, this movie has developed an insane cult following, mostly visible by its mascot, Sam, the aforementioned orange footy pajamas, burlap sack child in the film, which we have I'd say half-size candy dish of him in our basement right now that always has treats for us when we're down here playing games or recording the podcast and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So we just got Sam out here, burlap sack, hat, face, and all, just giving us some treats. So this film by Bloody Disgusting, a horror publication, is ranked. They ranked this film 9th in the list of the top 20 horror films of the decade in which it came out. So the early 2000s, they gave it its 9th, calling it so good that its lack of theatrical release borders on the criminal.
I agree with that.
Which it blows my mind that, like, especially in this day and age when everywhere Spirit Halloween, which I just went to this past weekend and stuff, you fucking see Sam everywhere. The amount of money that Warner Brothers, because they're the ones who ended up releasing this, could have generated and stuff, and it's because they were like, well, it's not horror enough. They wanted to cut so many scenes out of this movie to make it straight horror when it's a horror comedy. Like it's lighthearted at times,
but sort of.
Yeah. But I mean, like, there's like some like laughing, like legit, like jokey scenes in this movie. It's dark comedy, but it does not take itself seriously. And at that time, 2007, like I said, you've got the Saw movies, Hostel 2's been out now. Like, you've got the Eli Roth and all this kind of like, Rob Zombie's putting films out. And then like this like legit love letter to Halloween comes out, and they're just like, fuck this movie, and just threw it out on DVD, which is a shame.
I agree.
So, all that being said, we are going to give out an early spoiler warning on this film. We are going to go and explain our thoughts on it, what happens throughout the film, what we wish would have happened, what we liked, what we didn't like. We're gonna champion this film. We're gonna piss on this film. There are no sacred movies on this podcast. I'm looking at you, The Shining. So we are going to get into it. So the lights have been lit. The jack-o'-lanterns have been lit, let's say. And the warning sign has been out. So we are going to get into Trick R Treat, Trick or Treat, not to be confused with Trick or Treat, which was an 80s horror, like heavy metal horror film, which they wanted to name this film that, but they couldn't get the rights or something like that. So before we go into it, we are going to dive into IMDb a little bit, and we're going to play a little bit of 1 out of 10, 10 out of 10 review. I'm going to read you 2 reviews on this film, and you're going to guess which one of these is a 10 out of 10 and which, oh, that's my mic. Which one of these is a 10 out of 10? Which one of these is a 1 out of 10? So let's see how this goes. Whether it's intentionally bad or unintentionally, it is a terrible movie. Mixing up the chronology, of the film is always an interesting technique to keep viewers on their toes. However, this is a ridiculous amount of chopping and changing that actually just makes it hard to follow. I don't like paranormal fiction topics at the best of times, but a gravity-defying immortal pumpkin kid is beyond saving. Please do not even get me started on the werewolves. Literally just an excuse to allow some attractive girls to moan and rip off their clothes, not to mention that it had absolutely zero relevance to the plot. What irritates me the most is the subtle Halloween references, such as Laurie and the Michael Myers-esque figure staring at the woman in the start. The film should not even be allowed to call itself a slasher, let alone tie itself to the most famous slasher of all time. 1 out of 10, purely because there is no 0 option. Would not recommend to my worst enemy, to be frank.
Can I say a review of that review? the fact
What's
that you
that?
said, I don't like paranormal movies. Like right there just already tells you. I don't like this
Yep, I
style,
thought
so
that too.
therefore I don't like this movie. Anyway.
All right, so that was that the 10 out of 10, do we think?
No, but the thing that doesn't make any sense about that review is it says that it's like jumbling the storyline. It literally hand feeds you that it starts a certain way, says it goes back in time, and then it walks you through the whole plot in a circle. It's literally, it starts and ends at the same time. It is
But it's linear
common
on
sense.
4 different tracks.
Time is a flat circle, okay.
Flat circle. Got it.
I just okay, go on with the 10 because that guy is.
I think that was the 10 out of 10 because this one's so much worse.
Oh shit!
Trick or Treat 2007 is a movie in my DVD collection that I recently rewatched on Shudder. The storyline follows a neighborhood one Halloween season filled with werewolves, vampires, serial killers, and the ghosts of children who were tied in a bus accident. Halloween is the one night all these worlds can collide. This movie is a brilliant blend of comedy and horror, a little bit like Slither. Love the opening puke storyline followed by the hilarious conversation about Charlie Brown and the neighbor. The horror elements in this film has a creative blend of solid jump scares, supernatural elements, monsters, blood splatter, and gore. Every worthwhile aspect of the horror genre is in this. Overall, this became an instant classic in the horror genre the day it was released. I would score this 10 out of 10 and strongly recommend it.
That was much better.
So, obviously, some divisive opinions on this movie, and we will see what the three of us feel about this movie. So, in the opening scene, we have a husband and wife coming home from a Halloween parade, and she is tearing down decorations and stuff, but the husband is very like, oh, come on, can't we do that tomorrow? Like, it's still Halloween. And she's very Scrooge, like, you know.
Because her mom's coming into town.
And she's like, the big no-no, like, that gets her on a shit list is she blows out a jack-o'-lantern. And he's like, you're not supposed to do that. So she's tearing down the stuff, and he's being the standard husband and being like, hey, can I get a little something from you? Whatever. He's like checking her out nonstop and everything. And she's just not having it. And she kind of like caves or whatever. And she's like, fine, put on the videotape. I'll be up in a minute. And he's like, hell yeah, I'm going to get it in tonight.
Busting out the videotape.
Yeah, and the videotape that he busts out is labeled. I love it. It's a nature special VHS. Pops it in, and it starts out playing like a Discovery Channel nature special and stuff. And you later see in the film that it's taped over a bit and it's a porn. So but yeah, she's pulling the sheets and stuff, and it's got like this kind of tense music playing and everything. You're just like expecting something to happen, and nothing really happens at this point. I believe she's like pulling them down, and then something like she's pulling, and then from under a sheet that she's not pulling yet, if I remember correctly, something comes and gets her. Is that correct?
Yeah, she gets slashed with a sucker or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Gigantic lollipop.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the opening credits roll, which I love the opening credits. It gives me that like Tales from the Crypt vibe, like and not just the television show, but like the legitimate comics, the old EC comics from like the 50s and 60s and stuff that was rotting the youth of America. All these horror stories are ruining children's lives and perverting them. The Marilyn Manson of their day.
Well, it walks you through that whole storyline. So I love that about that. When you're watching the opening credits, if you pay close attention to them, it literally breaks down what you're about to see, not like with giving too much away, but it's kind of like, hey, this is what we're going to put you into. It's 4 stories, all these things. So it kind of prepares you for what you're kind of walking into. And I really like that because it's done in like that comic book opening, and it's more interesting than a lot of movies open.
Yeah, it definitely like it leans into it just being like, this movie's going to have some style to it. Like it's a very confident film. Whether that confidence is misplaced or not is up to the viewer, but it definitely.
And I can tell you, as someone that didn't watch the opening credits nearly as closely as you two did, you have to watch the opening credits and realize that there are 4 sequential storylines.
Yes.
So the opening, though, definitely, I really like the music playing to it because it's very reminiscent. I don't know if it's like an homage to it or something, but it definitely has like the feels of the Reanimator theme, which is one of my favorite horror comedies from the 80s. I believe it came out like 85, maybe 86. But it just got like this almost like what's his name? I'm losing my credit right now, but the dude that does all the Tim Burton films, Danny Elfman, kind of has this Danny Elfman kind of feel like kind of feel to it and everything, kind of get you in that mood, which I love. Like you throw that in there and like I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna just have a fun time. There's probably gonna be some blood and stuff, but you know, this is gonna be a good time.
Okay, so Tasha, do you ever notice anything like this when you're watching movies this much, like that detailed into music? Because he's the only person I know that does this. He's like, did you hear the soundtrack? And it was doing all these things. And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm paying attention to the characters and all the details. And you're over here singing the song in the background.
Yeah, I didn't get that, Gene.
Okay, thank you. It's not just me.
So when we come back, you're hearing, I can't remember, but I believe it's maybe television, might be radio, but you're hearing a newscaster speaking. And it wasn't until I think this last time taking notes, watching it and stuff, it legit tells you the things that are in this movie because it says werewolves, zombies, demons, as the newscaster is talking about like the different things it's seeing at the parade. We get those things in this movie. Like, so it's talking about the people being dressed up, but it's literally saying like what's happening in the film. I thought that was kind of cool. And then that's when we meet our how did he put it? Some attractive women that blah, blah, blah. We meet our group of girls, one of which is played by Anna Paquin from the X-Men movies, Sookie Stackhouse from True Blood and stuff. And a little cool thing is they're getting their Halloween costumes for the night because they're going to go to a party and they're going to meet some guys and everything. Lori is going to basically
lose her virginity
is how it's played up. And you have her sisters. It kind of is leaning towards. It doesn't exactly say, but like it just like the way they're treating each other and referring, like mom always said and all this, they're implying that they're sisters. Cool little thing is they're getting peeped on by a little boy during them getting dressed. And the thing that's pretty cool about that is the, I don't have his name in front of me right this second, but that is the boy that his name is Quinn Lord that plays Sam throughout the rest of the movie.
Okay. I was wondering where you were going with that being a cool thing.
Okay, yeah. That is cool.
Micheal Dougherty loved his performance so much as Sam in this movie that he thought it was a shame that he wasn't able to get his face shown in the film. So he gave him that spot so he could point out that that's him. Like,
that's cool.
Everything else, he's masked and everything. Yeah. But in this scene, you actually get to see him in the film, which I thought was really cool.
That is cool.
You see little Quinn peeping on Sookie. But yeah, they're talking about their Halloween gets of the year by as if it was sex, but it's basically
something else.
Yeah, like spoiler warning's been kind of thrown up. Like they're talking about like, oh yeah, I did this, that, and they're talking in a mixed way of like, is it sex or is it food? Because they're blurring some lines and stuff. It's like, oh, I had Mexican last year and it really upset my stomach and all this kind of stuff. And it's not until later in the film you find out she's talking about a Mexican person upset her stomach, not a burrito from Taco Bell. So the thing that I did like though about these werewolves, cat's out of the bag, the wolf's out of the bag. These girls are werewolves. You don't find that out till later in the film, but that they're played as like seductresses. And I really liked that about it. Instead of them just being beastly, vicious, like monsters, like with this bloodlust, they kind of have this like siren kind of feel to them, which for me, I've seen my fair share of werewolf films, but by no means would I say that I'm an aficionado of the trope. But I've never seen it played where they're literally luring their prey in. And I thought that was cool.
Which is why I thought they were vampires for the majority of it.
Yep.
Because that's kind of more a vampire tactic versus a werewolf.
Yep. Yeah, but again, this is one of those things where they do kind of allude to what it might be, but you don't. That was one thing I didn't pick up on with the Little Red Riding Hood thing, the big bad wolf thing, where she's dressed up as the character, Lori, Anna Paquin's character. She's wearing a Little Red Riding Hood costume, which is super cute.
Yeah, and she's like, I look like I'm 6. But so yeah, they're talking like to the cashier and stuff and telling them that they're going to, and another nod, like telling you kind of what they are, because it doesn't tell you what they are until the reveal. They're going to party at Sheep's Meadow. So wolf in sheep's clothing. Also the big bad wolf and stuff like that. It just kind of has all this this stuff. So from that, it cuts on to the next bit of story, where we see bad Santa kid. I believe his name's Charlie. It is the kid that played the young child in Bad Santa. Shows up.
Charlie as in which one are you talking about? The son?
No, Charlie's the curly haired kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. He's walking down, knocking down pumpkins,
jack-o'-lanterns
and stuff like that. Yep. Again, big no-no. Gonna get you got in this movie if you keep fucking with these pumpkins and stuff. And he comes up, he's smashing pumpkins. He's gonna I think there's a bowl that says like take one or something like that. And he is going to take a lot more. And that's when we meet our principal character, played by Dylan Baker, who for this performance won the Fangoria Chainsaw Award. I think it was like 2010, maybe 2009, for Best Supporting Actor for this. So Fangoria, the horror publication, every year they have their own award show that is strictly just about horror films. And last movie we watched, Oculus, the mother in that one Best Supporting Actress or Best Supporting Actor or Actress. And in this one, we have another recipient of the exact same award. So in good company for our podcast. So, so he starts stealing the candy, and that's when we see the principal come out, and it's like, oh, you're taking one. He's like trying to lie and stuff, and he's like, don't waste a good lie on this. And he has him sit down and is like, you know, I used to be a lot like you when I was a kid and all this stuff. And he's got a knife and everything, and the kid's like kind of worried that he's going to get fucked up by this principal, which, I mean,
he does.
He has a right to. And he's creepy, like with how he just is like kind of like luring and everything. You're like, this motherfucker gonna kill this kid. And he kind of reassures him, it's like, it's not for you, it's for the pumpkin. And he's carving this pumpkin and everything and explaining to the kid that, you know, like, I used to be like you, and it wasn't until my dad taught me, like, set me straight. Which we see how this is generational for his family, of how we're setting him straight. And the kid's just eating candy, listening to this story. And we get the best vomit stream ever.
Depends on who you ask.
I was going to say.
I see you shaking your head, Tasha. What's your problem here?
Too much vomit.
One man's too much is another's like, pour some sugar on me.
The viscosity of that vomit was absolutely just amazing. And it was like a really good color too, because it's like chocolate mixed with like bloody color. It was just brilliant. I do agree it was in volume crazy, but I felt like it really drove the wild part of the story home, I guess.
I believe I read that it was a mixture of like melted chocolate and corn syrup, and some like red like food coloring kind of stuff to like kind of get it there. And Micheal Dougherty has actually stated that he actually tasted it and it was actually quite delicious.
I mean, it's corn syrup and chocolate. It can't be too bad.
That's true.
It's just sugar.
Yeah.
I'll never be able to watch Willy Wonka the same. It's the waterfall out of his mouth.
Yeah, literally.
And he's just puking, and I die every time. The principal is like looking at him. He's like, want a root beer? He's just puking. Like he's like, and he just falls over and he pulls a lollipop out and just says, always check your candy, leaning into the urban legend of, you know, razor blades in the candy and stuff, which later when you go into his house, you see that he is poisoning this candy. He is filling them with blades. This motherfucker is every red flag of Halloween as a child.
Every parent's nightmare.
Don't go up to strangers.
Yes.
Yeah, like straight
and
up.
he's the principal, so that makes it worse. Like, and he's dragging this kid into the house, like he's unconscious now. And then he's dragging him or walking through the kitchen or whatever. And then you see this whole table full of poison. And I'm just like, the details in this movie are so on point, like down to him pulling his own sucker out and like just, oh, I just love this movie so much.
And let's not forget the twist that we didn't know he was the principal right away, or maybe not a twist, but it wasn't brought up right out of the gate. It was a little hidden there for a minute.
I think it's later on when the kids show up in a little bit. But this is actually a scene when he's dragging the body in and he's like, the blood and puke is like spilling all over him. He's like, oh, and he's kind of like slipping and stuff. The studio wanted to cut this scene because it was deemed like too funny, not because it was too gross that he murdered a child. They just thought it ruined the tone of what they wanted this to be, the serious, you know, horror film and stuff. And this one of my favorite scenes. Like, I love the slapstickiness of it. He's just like, oh, God damn it. Fucking now I gotta deal with this. So he's dragging it in and he closes the door. And while he's dealing with it, there's a knock at the door. And he's just like, just a minute, as he's covered in blood and vomit. And he opens the door and there's some children here dressed as an angel and a pirate. You've got a girl with the headgear on and stuff. And these are some kids that we're going to be following through the film as well. And he, like, the pirate kid notices like the blood streak. And he's just kind of like, this is when we find out he's the principal. He's like, hey, principal, and the name's escaping me, but Principal
Wilkins.
So-and-so. Wilkins, there you go. Yeah, Wilkins. fucking blah blah blah. Yeah. So yeah, hi Principal Wilkins, and he's just like has this like have a happy trick or treat kind of vibe to him, like this like very leering kind of feel. Straight behind him is our mascot Sam, comes up, grabs himself. It wasn't until I did research for this movie, grabs a very specific red candy bar out of this that we will see later in the film from this bag or from this bowl of candy, and then he's dragging his sack behind him, and you hear that there's a fucking cat in this bag as it's going down the stairs, and you just hear like thud, 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 and he's like,
I love that too. That's so cute.
It breaks my heart, but it was such a solid part.
Yeah, it's like we have a cat named Gimli. He's like my boy. He's a black cat, and Matt, shout out to Gimli. So he grabs the candy, and then we cut to this like lawn gnome holding down a tarp, and he's basically getting ready to throw the kid that he just murdered into a hole that he's already got a kid in the ground. So this isn't the first kid that he's got tonight. And enters the loudest fucking kid to ever exist. His son is upstairs yelling out the window like, Dad, are we going to carve a pumpkin tonight? Dad, are we going to do this? And the dad's like, just keep it down. Like, why don't you just go watch, why don't you just watch Charlie Brown? And I believe he's like, Charlie Brown's an asshole.
Love that kid.
Uh-huh.
And another thing I didn't notice until I was researching at this time, later we see him dressed differently, but at this time when we see him, he's actually dressed as Chucky. Not dressed like to be Chucky, but just the outfit he's wearing is Chucky. The bib, the striped shirt. He's just, that's his clothes. Like, this kid is just Chucky, kind of.
And that alludes to what happens later in the storyline, so that makes sense. Okay.
Yep. So he's starting to bury the kid, and then you hear the next door neighbor yelling for his dog Spite. The dog Spite starts barking, and the neighbor starts yelling to it, which we've already talked that might be our next dog's name, Spite, which is a dope ass name for a dog. And he kind of sees him through. The neighbor looks through the fence and is just like, "What are you doing over there? Hiding bodies? It stinks like a dead." It's a very specific thing to think that it smells like outside. You have to have had a history with that, I believe. And then this fucking kid again is just like, "Are you almost done?" And just like yelling. And he's like, "Well, we'll hang out later. Right now, I've got a date. I've got this date that I got to go on to." And then it cuts. It cuts to another scene now. So we're starting to like get these multiple timelines going and everything. Actually, before it cuts, he starts walking into his house, and you see that neighbor that was just giving him shit, and he tells him like, "Happy Halloween." And he's like, "Screw you," very Scrooge-like again, going into his house. And then as Wilkinson's walking up to the door of his house, he sees him like banging on the windows, like mouthing like help and stuff like that. And he's just like, "Fuck you," and just walks in the house, just whatever, don't care. But we'll get to see that later. So now it's time to kill the kid is how it felt to me. I thought this motherfucker was going in to murk his son, because he's like, "We're going down to the basement." He's hiding the knife behind his back. As you're going down the basement, you like see these masks and stuff like hanging up on the wall.
Yeah, it's creepy. When I saw those, I was wondering, like, was this part of his other kids that he has killed on Halloween's? Because you don't know, like, when this principal, how many kids he's killed. You don't know, like, any other backstory other than he's obviously, like, crazy and he has definitely killed somebody. And I'm curious, like, if maybe he only does it on Halloween, or maybe, like, that's his excuse, or maybe he does it more often. I wish we got a little bit more understanding of that.
What we know is that he was taught the right way to celebrate Halloween by his father.
Oh, yeah. So that's probably what it is every year. And I wonder if we count them, if we can see how old his son is, if that's how many masks they have on the wall.
Could be. Something that we skimmed over and stuff is like while that whole neighbor and him altercation is going on, a body that he had in the ground that he thought was dead was like grabbing at his foot and stuff, and he's like beating the shit out of a kid with a shovel while trying to like talk to the neighbor, which is so fucking funny to me because he's just like, "Grr, grr." He's like, what was that? He's like, oh, I just like basically like I stubbed my toe, like all this stuff.
But the kid in the ground, though, this is the thing I thought was weird about it. I think he's like dressed as a clown or something. There's like stripes or something on his clothes. So I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Also, there's a point where he cuts off after he kills that kid. Like there, he cuts off the finger of it and throws it over, and that's what he shuts Spike up with. Is the Spite? I'm sorry, Spite with.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really funny scene, and the fact that like the studio wanted this to be a straight horror film, I don't understand, and it's because of that. It's because of the temperature of the horror genre at that time. This was just shelved and stuff, and it's ridiculous. So anyway, he's taking his son downstairs, and he's like, okay, like, Dad, can you show me are we going to carve that pumpkin? He's like, yeah, we're going to do it. And he puts his hand on the kid's head and he raises the knife, and you're like, see,
Kid's
kid,
gone.
This is because you talk shit about Charlie Brown, you know? And we see that he goes in to something and you think it's a pumpkin. You're like, oh, okay, it's just another fake setup. No, not really a fake setup. It's actually it's pretty fucked
Worse.
up. You then see the kid that he just murdered upstairs. It's his decapitated head on a Lazy Susan. And they're carving it like it's a jack-o'-lantern. And the boy in like this really like fucked up kind of creepy, like, you know, just like, let's carve a scary face this time. He's like, okay, son. And it's like, oh shit, this is what his dad taught him. And now he's passing it on to his son. Delightful.
Well, and we also forget that the mom's dead. So like, he's like, and you can tell he doesn't care. The husband doesn't, or the principal. So I have to wonder if like, did he kill her too? Like, it's like this weird. So I wonder like if this is a family thing, did his mom also get killed by his dad? Like if it's this like reiteration of like just mental illness essentially.
And I was really struggling with that scene with all of the paraphernalia upstairs going like, why is this kid so chill with all of this stuff? Like he wants to go down and carve a pumpkin like any like standard kid would. And then it made complete sense. That was like a really big, okay, I get it. Everyone's in on this.
Yeah. So then we cut from that scene and we meet the kids that were just at the pirate, the angel and stuff like that. And they are collecting jack-o'-lanterns and stuff like that. And they go up to a raucous party. It's a fucking swingers party that is going on. I think, or maybe it's a key party. They be fucking behind that door. Somebody's getting got in this.
But it's their teachers.
It's their teachers. It's one of their teachers dressed up as a sexy black cat that is just completely half lit. And she's like, hey, you guys want a drink and all this stuff?
I couldn't think of a worse situation as a child.
Yeah.
And this is one of my favorite lines in the film. The pirate kid is kind of like looking past the cat woman, and you can kind of see the party going on and everything. You see like this hot dog character, like a guy in a hot dog costume, like dancing up on somebody and everything. So then they get their candy or whatever and they leave. And the pirate kid is just talking to the friends. He's like, I think I just saw a hot dog butt fucking a pig. And that is one of my favorite lines in this movie.
And it was their gym teacher.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. The absurdity of that line. I just saw a hot dog butt fucking a pig. And then they just keep walking. They're collecting their jack-o'-lanterns. And then you come across what I have in my notes as the most dope jack-o'-lantern front yard ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
They come upon this old house that is easily got like 200 completely different jack-o'-lanterns carved. Beautiful. All of these were not real pumpkins. They were like synthetic pumpkins that are made to be carved. They weren't like styrofoam, but there's like a specific company that makes these and everything. And yeah, so then we meet this young girl, Rhonda, in her cute little witch outfit. They refer to her as an idiot savant and stuff like that. She's pretty like hardly bullied on in this film, and it's kind of the way that she acts and stuff in this film leads me to believe that she might be like, I don't know, like lightly autistic or something like that. But like at the same time, like she's a sweet character. She's very like she's a good character, but like these kids are just like, she's weird. She's different. And because of that, they feel that that she can be the butt of their jokes. But as we see later in the film, the joke's like on them. Then it cuts like we meet her, they collect up some pumpkins, and then they invite her because they're going to basically have a laugh at her expense in this film. They invite her to go with them. So it's kind of like the cool kids picking on not the outcast by like, she's not an outcast because she wants to be. She's her own person.
Different one.
She's the different one, and they see that as something to be mocked and stuff. So they're going to use her as fodder for their Halloween pranks. And then we cut to a dope Halloween parade that I would love to go to. Yeah. This is supposed to be set in Ohio. It's this dope Halloween parade that supposedly this movie's supposed to be set in Ohio and stuff. We're from Ohio. I've yet to see one this cool, and we see. Is
it a real town in Ohio? Does it ever say?
I want to say it does name drop the town. I don't have it in front of me. I didn't note it down. It might be, but I don't think it is. I do know that the parade itself, because I believe the movie was shot in Canada. I believe it was shot like in Toronto or something like that. The parade was actually a real parade that goes on up there every year. Like it's a legitimate parade that goes on and stuff. I can't remember the name of like the organization that puts it on and stuff, but like that's what they fucking do. Like it might not be like it might not be like that they just shot the parade. The people involved in it are the ones that are involved with that parade.
Gotcha.
So that's how they went about that. And then we get kind of this like vampire scene of this guy like chasing down a girl and everything. And isn't that the point where we're seeing this like hooded man with the mask and everything?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like chasing the girl down the alleyway and everything. And I just have down here that he kind of is like Batman vampire. He just kind of has this like vibe to him and stuff. So we cut to the kids walking to a stone quarry, and they talk about the Halloween school bus massacre, kind of on the nose name. But they're talking about in a flashback that I really do like because it's got like this orange filter sepia tone. About like these kids that they were like special needs kids, and on Halloween they their parents paid off the bus driver to drive the bus into the quarry because these kids had become such a burden to them. So collectively these parents had it, or just had been pushed to their limit, that they were just like, you know what? We're going to kill all these kids, and we're going to pay this guy to do it and be rid of our children, which is horrible.
So bad.
Yeah, it is legit like sad, because while it's going on, the child that's dressed with like the vampire mask and stuff is counting he's not counting, he's reading the house address numbers. So he's like, 6205, 6207. So because of that, he knows that the bus driver takes a different route, and he's like, wrong way. Like he's realizing something's wrong. And this is after the bus driver is going through making sure that, he's driving them there and then stops at the quarry and then double checks to make sure that they're all chained in. He gives them all a piece of candy, like for their buckets and stuff, and he's going to drive them into this quarry. But it's at this time that the vampire kid is just like, nope, this is wrong. I want to go home. I want to go home. And gets to the driver's seat with the bus driver still like in the bus towards the back, handed out candy, and puts it in gear and hits the gas pedal and drives the bus towards the quarry. The bus driver is still inside and it goes over. Later, the next scene cuts to the bus driver coming to shore in this quarry because the quarry is full of water. And you see him breathing hard and everything, and you see the masks of these children float to the surface as they have been killed, and it's super sad. Like, they don't play it up for laughs. Like,
yeah,
it's this like, and this is the story of what happened, and then they just kind of play it, and it's I don't want to say it's a downer, but like it is. It is. I mean, but it's heavy. Like, it's not like it doesn't ruin the film. Like,
oh, gotcha.
It's not like crying or anything, but it's just like, that's fucked up. It's really fucked up.
Well, and then he has a scar on his face. So like you can associate that later on in the film. So like you can definitely tie all of that together. But the other thing I found was interesting, kind of like with all the Easter eggs within this film, is that the bus they're riding is from Happy Shepherd Academy. Like, how messed up is that?
Yeah, I had a really hard time with that scene. It made me sad. I was mad at the writers for putting it in, to be completely honest with you. It was really unnerving, that whole slow, quiet, all you hear is the one boy.
Yep.
And I like it.
Considering your background and your field, not to go into anything, like, I imagine it hits even harder.
Oh yeah.
Because like that's kind of your line of work.
Yeah.
Know?
You're
not a bus driver, but I
I'm
mean,
not
like,
a bus driver. Yeah.
You work with kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's also unfair that the only person that survives of all of that is the bus driver.
Yeah.
Like, there's 8 kids and all 8 kids die. And it's just very tragic. And they're all wearing masks because they're like celebrating the holiday. And I think it said it was 30 years to this movie. So like 30 years prior this happened. So that was kind of interesting too.
Well, it's really neat too. Let's see. I've got it here somewhere. Maybe it was in my previous notes. Here it is. The performers under the masks playing the kids on the school bus all have real disabilities or injuries, and they apparently had a blast during the shoot. The costumes were inspired by a mix of photos from Ralph Meatyard and Diane Arbus capturing real mentally disabled children on Halloween in their own homemade costumes. So there are these pictures of like these special needs kids and stuff, and they took that inspiration to tie it to like, this is like a real thing. Like, and the fact that they like went the extra yard to not just be like, they're not doing it for shock value and stuff like that. And they've got kids or
I like that they got like representation of the people that unfortunately, like, it's a sad scene, but at least they represented it appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I thought that was really cool that they did that. Then it cuts back from the really cool, like, sepia orange toned flashback, and the angel, who's kind of the head of this gang of like shitty kids, talks about that they collected 8 jack-o'-lanterns for the 8 victims. I've got in my notes, the angel girl is a bitch, and I've never called a child a bitch. This child is a bitch. Good fucking God. Like, I hope that she's a very sweet girl. Like, she's a full-grown adult by now. She's just a stellar actress. But good Lord, like, she just is so slimy and stuff. Like, the guy that she's kind of fancies or whatever is like being nice here and there because he's supposed to be like the bait for the girl or whatever, and but you can see that he's like actually cares for this girl, Rhonda and stuff, and she just gets like all these like shitty looks at him and everything every single time. He's just like, oh, that's really interesting. She's just like, it's not fucking interesting. I'm the one that's interesting. Has that kind of vibe to her, and just like, fucking throw this kid off a bridge. But then we cut back to the parade, and Little Red Riding Hood sees our Batman vampire. And what do we got here? So we see that they make that connection, and oh yeah, the angel like drops the hard R talking about Rhonda and stuff like that, just adding like more
Your
for me
hatred of her.
Yeah, she's just like, all this horrible stuff, and they basically are going to set it up. They're setting up Rhonda because they're going down here and they're going to put on the guys that they're zombies, and they're going to just scare the ever living shit out of her. So they're screaming and stuff. They go down, like the kids go down and everything, and Rhonda is the butt of the joke. The kids all pretend to disappear and stuff, and they get dressed up in their zombie guard, and they scare her to the point where she falls and smacks her head on a rock, which easily could have killed her, could have cracked her skull. And the boy that has been used as the sexy bait for her, like the charming guy that's talking to her, like at this point is like, she's had enough, guys, come on, stop it. And the angel, the little bitch, is just like, has this like, she's had enough when I said she's had enough kind of thing. And it's just like, you guys are kids, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, just the worst fucking thing. And then
I love the irony of the angel being the hardcore bitch in this.
Yeah, she's just fucking horrible. The other two kids that isn't like the bait guy, the other two are like kind of just along for their ride and stuff. They're like, okay, and everything, but she's just fucking a horrible person. But so like that's all happening, and then the kids go back out into the foggy stuff because they think they saw something, I believe is how it works, right?
I know that they do something. I don't know if they're running out of it or whatever. They hear something and then they're not sure what it is. Well, we find out what it is, and she gets away and she goes back up, and they're trying to get back into the elevator to go back upstairs. And she's like, I don't think so. And she goes back up with her pumpkin that's still lit, because they had blown out the last pumpkin down at the quarry, and except for hers, that I think was maybe still in the lift, or she had with her, I can't remember. And she goes back up, and they're basically left to whatever decides wants to deal with them. And we see later on, but
it is the zombie children of those kids that were driven over the ledge are killing them, and you don't see it, but you hear it. You hear limbs snapping, blood gurgling, guts getting ripped out, all things good in my book. And Rhonda makes it to the top of the elevator with her pumpkin, and in the distance you hear the faint howling of wolves, which ties into our werewolves that we'll be seeing later in the film. And Rhonda walks out of the elevator, sees, and there's Sam just looking at her, sees she's holding the pumpkin and everything. It's just like, good on ya, and just continues on his way off to cause some mischief elsewhere. So at this point, we, I believe, cut to the werewolves.
I think so. They're luring back the vampire guy because they're like making out in the middle of the forest, and he's there, and he bites Laurie's character because he's, the vampire guy.
It doesn't really go into, like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, it makes him super cringy.
It does. It's like he wants to kill people, so I'm wondering if like he associates, like, because he's the serial killer guy, so like I'm wondering if he like somehow thinks vampires are the next thing. I don't know, like maybe that's what he desires to be in life. I have no idea.
That motherfucker read Twilight.
Yeah, probably.
Just was like,
that's my chance.
This is how it's done.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I'll show you fucking sparkles.
Yeah, well, and that's when you're like following along, and like he's like, you think she's hurt because she screams, and then the next thing you know, he fucking falls out of a damn tree. Like you blink and it's like, what just happened? And then her sisters are like looking at him like on the ground, like what happened? And she shows up and she's like, you know, a hot mess a little bit with blood down her neck and things like that. And that's when the show goes on. Like, you don't know if they're vampires or they're witches because they're around this like bonfire. And you quickly learn that, you know, Hot Dog Man's laying like his costume, the gym teacher's laying next to her, and she loses her virginity in a way that the not normal way, let's just say.
It's her first kill. So like when his body falls down out of the trees and stuff, the girls like kind of rush up to it because they hear her scream and then they see this body fall. They think it's her. And then they're just kind of like, oh no, they rush up and then they uncover it and they see like it's just this other guy and they're like, oh that's and that's like Laurie comes like strolling in all like, hey, what's up? You know? And I like this scene a lot. Like, this is when the reveal of them being werewolves happens, and they do it in a really neat way. Because in most movies, like American Werewolf in London and stuff like that, like there's like these very visceral, like bone crunching, like extension kind of stuff. And you watch the snout come out, which is all, I like that stuff too. This one, like they keep talking to her about like, you know, like just be yourself. Just be yourself. And how they do that is like they literally like cut their skin and just rip off their skin, and they're these gnarly ass practical effects werewolves, which look so good. I love that. And then Laurie, like she's got like these kind of fanged up teeth, her eyes are like yellowy kind of and stuff, and gives a cheesy line, but I like it in the setting and stuff. She's like, what big eyes you have. And then in some of the worst CG I have ever seen, it looks up at the camera and you see her face kind of extend out into like a wolf shape, and she begins to mow down on the principal / vampire guy, and all the other werewolves howl. If they had the budget to like have these super cool practical effect werewolves, they could have just done that, or just had it her normal face and get into it. But that CG is so bad. It is some of the worst I've seen. And the fact that so many people worked on that and people like checked off on it, like that's acceptable, is a damn shame. Because it is, for me, it is the thing that keeps this from being like, oh, it's a great movie. Is that glaring CG just makes me go like, no, that's good. It could have been great. It's so close. But like, it's just like, oh, it's the first thing that comes into my mind. It's like, oh, you've seen Trick or Treat? I just see her fucking face to Marilyn Manson's cover of Sweet Dreams playing. And I guess there's another song, I'm not familiar with it, that they wanted to have, but they couldn't clear the rights. So the Marilyn Manson song was actually the second choice for it. And in these given times and stuff and everything, like he's kind of a shitbag. Well, he is a shitbag, it seems, and everything. But I grew up listening to him. I still listen to him to this day. Don't at me or whatever, you know, like it's what I grew up with. But yeah, like the scene really works. The music mixed with the bonfire, mixed with them ripping their skin off. It's a good scene, and then it just fucking shits the bed.
It wasn't up until that moment that I realized they were werewolves. So that was,
correct. Like Steph said, and I think you said as well. Thought it was vampires. Then there was the bonfire, and I was like, "Oh, it's witches."
Yeah,
and
then, the twists in this movie are what make it for me.
Yeah.
And then I believe we cut to our final story.
Yep.
So we see the neighbor earlier that has the dog Spite. We see him sitting in his house, drinking some whiskey or some alcoholic beverage, and he's getting not harassed necessarily, but there's like kids coming to his house for trick or treat and stuff like that, and you see him like unlocking all of these locks. So like there's some sort of history here with this guy, because it's not like one lock, two lock, it's like 8 locks. It's like So he's got this history of something going on.
Well, and his house is like all really old inside. It's not up to date. The walls are peeling and it's like very drab and dark and like something's wrong. Like there's nothing's updated. You're still using like, I want to say like rotary phones or something like that. Like it's insane. Like the amount of age it has.
Like the remote for his TV is like an old Magnavox remote from the 60s, like the hard click button, like kind of stuff. It's just like, you can tell this guy's kind of like on the line of being like a recluse. Like he does not go out. He just lives here. So he's unlocking these doors and stuff. And the door opens and you just see like these eyes and this like growling sound, and enters Spider Spite. So the dog is dressed as a spider and just chases these kids off the property. The kids drop their candy, and this man gathers up the candy and just takes it into the house. So again, another Halloween Scrooge.
Yep.
Oh, and then he's got a fireplace going, and you just see him kind of throwing pictures into this fire. And there's was it Ronco? Set it and forget it commercial, like infomercial playing in the background and stuff. And then his house gets egged, and you just hear like the eggs smashing. He's like kind of looking out the windows and stuff, and you hear this like childish, like ha 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 kind of going on and everything. And he's kind of getting pissed, and he goes out and lets Spite out, and you get to see that spat that he had with his neighbor from the other side of the fence. So you're seeing him kind of look through and everything and what's going on. So you're seeing the story now from a different perspective. And comes back in the house, gets Spite in because Spite's barking and everything.
And eating the finger.
And then Spite, I believe, looks upstairs and like kind of is like, kind of growls a little bit and runs upstairs. So he follows suit because he thinks he hears something upstairs. So he goes up and he like looking around, looking for Spite, which we don't necessarily find out what happens to Spite in this movie. It kind of makes it seem like maybe Sam kills Spite. There is a scene though that was cut that shows that Spite was not killed. So no dog was actually killed in this. I would like to just leave that there. So we've got two movies with dog survivors. Keanu Reeves, expect our email. And
we're not so sure about the cat, but at least the dogs have survived.
That cat's getting fucked. But he goes upstairs and he sees something moving under the sheet of his bed. He lifts it up, and it's just like one of those old mechanical hands, kind of like was it Thing or whatever from the Addams Family, like the little hand moving. And he's like kind of like confused. And at this time, a jack-o'-lantern that is in this bedroom bursts, like erupts in flame, and you see writing on all the walls in this room. It says like "Trick or Treat," and it might be like the full like "Trick or Treat, smell my feet" kind of like all over in different sizes, drawn all over this room.
Artistically, that was really cool. Like I love the whole inside of that house and everything that's played out in that house between the guy and Sam is just really creative. Like every single bit of it. And that bedroom is just like the start of the way that they film it and the way that they portray all of it. It's just really beautiful in like a very creepy, weird way.
Yeah, it's a very cool set piece for the movie. Very like iconic in my eyes, like just that eruption of fire from the pumpkin, they said the name of the movie, kind of feel like it's all over the walls and stuff. And our protagonist for this point, which we later find out is the bus driver from the bus massacre slumber party. Freddy's Nightmare, whatever. This is him 30 years later. He gets the old Pet Cemetery Achilles tendon cut from under the bed. And here's our boy, Sam. Sexy Sam in his footy pajamas comes out holding a candy bar that, if you pay attention to watching the movie, it is the candy bar that he got from the principal's candy dish. and he unpackages it, and you see a razor blade sticking out of the candy bar, which is now his weapon of choice. So we then get a kind of a fight scene, as it were, with Sam and the bus driver through this house.
Yeah, but it's cool because it's like there's candy on the stairs and on the floor, and then there's also razor blades just randomly thrown in with some glass and stuff. So like you're fighting through all of this, and then you already know like Sam is like not a normal kid. Obviously, he's the what is it of Halloween.
He's like the spirit of Halloween. He's named basically after Samhain. So that's what his name's short for. Like Samhain, Samhain is Sam. He is the embodiment of the spirit of Halloween.
Did Sam set up all the candy and razor blades like Home Alone style?
Yes. Yeah, it's like and he's a spirit, so it's not like he had to run and do it. Gotcha. He's just like making it happen. Yes. So it's his trick or treat. Like you either get treats or you get fucked up. Just ask this cat.
Yeah, and then they're fighting and stuff, and then one of my favorite scenes is like when the bus driver guy has the upper hand, or you think, and he shoots the freaking kid, and he blows into his chest, and he blows his hand off and stuff, and there's just pumpkin guts everywhere, and it's just awesome. And then then just when you realize that he really is made of pumpkin.
Yeah, I really like that. It's not even like in the movie, it's makes you believe that it's pumpkin guts, but for some reason they didn't use pumpkin guts. They used yarn and like KY jelly or Vaseline to get that effect. It works, but it's just like, why didn't you just because of the lights and stuff, they didn't want it rotting and smelling and all that stuff. But yeah, then you get like the Evil Dead hand. So like you think he's dead, and then the hand just starts crawling back. So you get two references to two movies I absolutely love in this point. You get the hand crawling back, which is kind of a nod to Evil Dead, because in that film, Ash cuts his hand off and then he has to fight the hand in a ridiculous scene. And then the bus driver looks and sees it and is just kind of like, you've got to be fucking kidding me, which is a nod to The Thing, because in that movie, the head comes off of a character, sprouts spider legs, and starts running away. And the crew just looks at it and says, you've got to be fucking kidding me. So it's like literally just like, oh, this is nice. This movie is legitimately like, it's not only a love letter to Halloween, the holiday, but it's a love letter to horror fans. So it gives a lot to, like, you see these things, you're like, oh, it's literally that what's the guy, Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like pointing like that, the Thing. It's like, it's literally that. Every time I watch this movie, I'm like, oh, I know what that means. So he's fights Sam and everything. Sam goes in for the killing blow after it's revealed that underneath this burlap sack, it gets ripped off, and you see that it's not a human face. His face is a pumpkin through the fight and everything. And Sam bites this jack-o'-lantern lollipop into a sharpened blade, and that's what he's going to use to kill this guy. And he goes to stab him right in the chest, and Brian Cox's character, the bus driver, is just like, and he stabs him, and you see him kind of like open an eye, like, wait, I'm not dead, what's happening? Sam lifts it, and there's a candy bar stuck to it. He just kind of chews on it very cutely. I might add. Just,
too much. Unnecessary.
I thought it was super cute. And he's like, okay, I got my treat. We're okay here. And he just stands up, gathers his things, walks to the door. The door just opens for him. Dope as hell. He walks out the door, and the door just slams. And the bus driver's just left there going like, what the fuck just happened? We then cut to the photos that he's burning, and that's when they reveal that he is the bus driver with the kids from the bus. It then kind of jumps forward in time, and we see some more kids trick-or-treating at his house. He comes out, he's had medical attention and stuff. He's in a sling now and everything, and they say like sweet mummy costume, and he gives them candy, which is the candy that he stole from those kids earlier. And he's just like, yep, happy Halloween, kind of, like he's all fucked up, shuts the door, and has another knocking at the door, and he opens the door, and it's the zombie kids from the bus. And the vampire kid's like, trick or treat, and it shows his face. He's like, and I believe it's credits basically at that time, or it's not credits. It cuts out, and we're seeing the couple from the beginning of the movie walking to their house from the parade, and Sam's watching all this stuff. The car drives by and about hits Rhonda, I believe it is, as she's crossing the street, and that car is the werewolves, and it's just like at the end, it's just tying all these stories together. You're seeing the little kid that was dressed like Chucky, the like Charlie Brown's an asshole kid, just sitting on the front porch handing out candy because his dad's out trying to get some strange and stuff. Father of the year.
But he's dead.
Really.
But he's dead now.
Yep, he's going to be dead because he's
dead. That's the end. That's the end. Yep.
Okay, so that's how the movie kind of ties itself up and everything, and that's Trick or Treat. I can only imagine. I know they re-released this in theaters. I think it was last year for like a limited run, and hopefully they do that kind of yearly. I want this movie to kind of come to like that kind of thing where it's just like a traditional thing. It's definitely a tradition in this house where it's like, well, it's the Halloween season or whatever, so there's certain movies that have to be watched, and this is one of them because it definitely embodies the season.
Mm-hmm.
But now is the point in the show that we clear the floor and give our scores. So out of 10 demonic spirit pumpkin children, out of 10 Sams, how many Sams does Sam? Steph, why don't you start?
Okay, so I always get caught up in like what I'm going to rate this movie because I just love it so much, and it is the embodiment of Halloween, but it's one of the most brilliantly written Easter egg movies probably ever, in the sense of like the amount of details that goes into this. And it is, but it isn't a simplistic storyline. Like they really do a great job with it. So I would say I'm going to give it a 9, just because I feel like it's probably my favorite horror movie as a whole. And I just love it. It's good.
I'm going to give it a 5. 5 Sams. And this is why. I think each storyline could have been its own movie. I do agree with that original review of it just having so much going on. And I clearly am not as vigilant when it comes to this movie because there was a lot of stuff that I missed. So it did seem like it was kind of jumbled together. The ending did tie it all together in a nice little bow for me. But I think that there was just so much going on that it kind of left a lot. It was jumping around a bit too much for me. And now that I know it was a horror comedy, a lot of the things that I didn't like make a little bit more sense, like the gratuitous vomit or the Evil Dead thing hand running across. There were a lot of scenes in the movie where I was just like, all right, this is a bit ridiculous. I don't get it. But I did like the twist. I love a good twist. So the principal being the murderer was cool. That was my favorite one. The Little Red Riding Hood being a werewolf, I thought that was cool. But overall, I might give it another watch just because of now that I know so much, being able to point out those Easter eggs. But I'm sticking with a solid 5.
Talking about the like how there's a lot going on and everything. There is a thing that I saw that said editing this film was described as a brutal process and hell. The only sequence that plays straight through is Krieg's demise at the end, the bus driver. And they said that I wish we did do a super special edition, which allowed you to watch the stories by themselves. So that would be kind of cool if there's like later down the road, there's like some release where they re-edit, like you can watch the normal film, but then you go in the special features and then it's a different cut of the film. And it is literally just here, just so you can see it just in a row. And I wonder how, like, if the movie is as good as Steph believes it is or whatever, because of the editing and how it is, if they're in line just normally, maybe it's not as good. Maybe it's better. Who knows? That being said, I like this movie. It's really like I said, like my initial watch and stuff, I was really snooty about it and everything. And that was many years ago. I've watched it probably 10 times. Cause I think every year since it's been out, I've watched it in, preparation for Halloween, stuff like that. Cause it embodies it. Like there are very few films. I mean, this movie out Halloween's the movie that is called Halloween, and embodying not in craft and stuff like that, but like in it being, this is the holiday. Like in Halloween itself does not have, up until this point, does not have a mascot. You know, like you've got Santa Claus and stuff like that. And you got, Uncle Sam and all that for the 4th of July, like Baby New Year. And like for Halloween, it's just like, oh, it's a black cat and vampires and stuff. But like Sam definitely has, like, they embodied the spirit of Halloween with him and stuff. And I really like that. I like the interwoven stories. I'm a sucker for horror comedies and stuff like that. This isn't my favorite horror comedy by a long shot, but this is probably, it's up there as one of my favorite anthology films. Which is saying a lot because that's with like Creep Show, which is directed by losing cred. It's co-done by Romero, who did the Dawn of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, all that stuff, and it's also written with Stephen King. So like that came out in the 80s. I love that one. But all that being said, I give Trick or Treat a solid 8 out of 10 Sams that did Sam. So I do believe that comes out to a 22 out of 30 for Trick or Treat from 2007, which gives us what total?
73.
A 73.
73%.
What did we get last week?
A 72.3 or something like that.
72. So just a little bit like comparable score. 73, which I think's a fair. It's not going to be everybody's movie. Like really? I think like when you start hitting the 80s and stuff, that's when it's just like, I mean, it's hard not to like this movie. 90s and stuff like that. Then you're talking like, this is a fucking great movie. This movie, it's going to have its haters. It's going to have its lovers and stuff. This definitely, as you can see, like going to Spirit Halloween and Hot Topic and all that stuff. It's like the next generation Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah. You see Sam everywhere.
Well, I think this movie, when you're talking about holiday based, is like, this movie feels very much to me about Halloween as like the Santa Claus with Tim Allen feels like for Christmas. So it's very much that, like, what movie do you watch during the holidays that very, very much embodies that spirit? That's the movie. But I'm also a huge Santa Claus fan. So like, I think that's kind of the line that draws across for me.
Yeah. And it's literally, I mean, not every family, but gather around, we're going to watch Trick or Treat, like it's definitely a movie that you could have playing while you're handing out candy and stuff like that. It just has that feel and everything. So that being said, we give Pot of the Dead, the terrifying trio that we are, give Trick or Treat from 2007 a 73. We are almost done. This is a movie club, so we are going to tell you what we are going to watch this week so we can talk about it next week. And that movie is...
Hey kids, it's your old pal Satan here with a little note that next week's actually our first double feature episode. So we'll be watching the Wes Craven classic Scream along with the Liv Tyler starring film The Strangers. So do come back and listen to the gang. For Pot of the Dead, this is producer Satan signing off.